Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Welcome to our bi-weekly roundup of the latest solar, wind, and battery news. Today, we are going to geek out on RE+. We were just in RE in Vegas, and I want to welcome to the show my co-host, John Weaver. Welcome.
Hey everybody, Vegas was cool. It was very exhausting being an East Coaster who wakes up really early, and then you're 3 hours to the west, and now you're waking up at 2 a.m. and you're trying your best to socialize because that's what you do at a conference. Means that you sleep like 2 to 3 hours a night for 2 or 3 nights, and that's just exhausting.
I think I remember you texting me at like 6 a.m.
Tim, I don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
just getting home.
I don't know what you're talking about. I did have one night, so that did contribute to the broader problem. Let's admit to that. But still, it's rough. You try to go to bed at 10.
I don't want to know what you were doing all night long, John, but it
was
was
in Las
fun.
Vegas,
I got to lose to John in darts like really badly, so that was a lot of fun.
That was fun. Saw the people from Next Tracker. Yes, that was nice.
Yep. And we'd like to welcome a new guest to the live. He's not a new guest to the Clean Power Hour, but welcome Evan Upshur from Chint Power Systems.
Yeah. Good
Hey,
afternoon
Evan.
to the East Coasters and morning to everyone else.
We got to hang out quite a bit, you and me, Evan, in the Chint booth at RE, but and I got to hang out a little bit with John too. So that was great. It's always great to see people that you don't see, but a couple times a year. That's one of my favorite things. And then of course, meeting a lot of new people, which I did lots of, and geeking out on all the technology. I didn't get to do enough of that, but I would love it if we'll start with you, Evan. Give us a high level takeaway from the show. And I know that you went to one of the big parties also, I think, in the stadium, right?
Yeah. I made my way around just to, continue networking and everything. High level for me was, just great to see a powerhouse of, an industry congregate like they always do. It's no mystery. We've had our ups and downs this year just in terms of policy and you could say, uncertainty, but didn't slow anyone down. Always great to see everyone there.
Yeah, a lot of good energy. How about you, John? What were your takeaways?
The residential people, they have some complexities going on with what's going to happen at the end of the year. Yeah. Certain markets are going to be a little different, like in the Northeast where we have high retail costs, maybe solar will hold on a lot stronger, probably will. There's going to be a hump because we're going to pull a lot of demand forward to the end of the year. So next year we'll see what happens. For us in the C&I space, it's just kind of not a difference other than maybe a little more intense because we know we have 2 years to finish most of our projects. And then our world is going to change. All the big folks, they're talking things like FIOC, safe harboring, things like that. It's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse in terms of 9 to 5 work. I'm writing about it, talking about it with people with PV Mag and stuff, but I'm not really feeling it. But I guess similar though, the energy generally is broad. People are positive. Lots of it's getting bigger. It's getting harder to walk the floor. Now it's really impossible to walk the whole floor and have casual, consistent conversations. I think you officially have to fully vet your time if you're going to spend 2.5 days on the floor meeting random plus interviewing. I'm saying myself as a PV magazine guy who has an obligation to shake hands and know people. And I didn't get through I usually walk every aisle. I did not do it this show. And
I don't think it's possible.
It might not be anymore. We may have crossed that precipice. So be it. But that's cool. That's good and bad. Good and bad.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think for anyone who hasn't gone to that show, it's good advice to maybe map out your objective because the scale that show is at now, I mean, not only is it multiple buildings and floors and everything like that, but those buildings and floors are so huge. I mean, you have to go there with a game plan and nail it down, or else you're gonna leave. You're gonna leave and be like, oh, I missed a few things.
Yeah, I didn't get to hang out on the forum very much. I spent one afternoon there for a few hours, mostly in the Venetian. It was great seeing some people that I hadn't met face to face. Shout out to the team at Celestica, who John and I talked about last week or last episode. Powerfield, a unique racking product, which we've had Drew, their CEO, on the show. It's flat to ground, not flat to ground, but the racking sits on the ground. It's a tub that you fill with gravel as ballast. So it's very simple. And anyway, that was cool to get to meet the team and see the tech. And I spent hours and hours in the Chint booth talking to Chint customers and Chint staff, of course. But those customer conversations for me are a favorite. Getting to hear them talk about other, power electronics versus Chint, pros and cons. And if you work for Chint, this is my message to the Chint team. If you work for Chint, don't freak out about FIAC, because you guys have a significant advantage in terms of product quality, the team, and the service. It's that tripartite. That is your secret sauce. So go Team Chint. That's my plug for Chint today.
Yeah.
John,
it's true though. I mean, a lot of folks, nowadays are really, focused on like, where are things made and, what's the ownership of the company. But, the one thing that stayed tried and true with us is just our American workforce. I mean, we have so many people in the service and field that I don't know. I don't think it's matched by anyone. I mean, that's a lot of American jobs though, that are, actual boots on the ground. So it feels good to have that support, right? I mean, you could manufacture in the States all day long, but if there's no support out in the field, it's, not really a winning package.
Or customer service, period. Like the full
Right.
wrap, you guys have a very good culture of service. So stick to your guns. So what else? What unique technologies did either of you see that you were surprised by or excited about?
I would say the fact that I'm considering 3 microinverters on a 3-phase 480 volt rooftop from Enphase. There might be some technical reasons for it. I'm working my way through it. Could end up with some string inverters. I looked at a couple of agrivoltaic racking systems. These are needs that I have for projects coming up. And so Solar Geek was one of them. I've spoken with them before. There's there's new module makers that are coming. I stopped by the cleaning Tim, I can't remember his last name right now, starts with the letter L, and he's got a solid set of cleaning hardware, and robotics are now expanding. There's robotic grass cutters, there's module placers and module movers.
Yep.
So to get them out to the field, and then we have the pile drivers. So I definitely seeing robotics expanding.
Big time.
Yeah, what's your team? Your gentleman that you work with, Tim, that I met in Boston. He was
Luminous. You met Jay.
Jay, yeah.
Wong.
So doesn't Jay have a big project he's actually doing in Australia? Like
he's working on like a 300 or 350 megawatt project in Australia. They won a grant from the equivalent of NREL in Australia. I don't know the acronym, but so they have several robots deployed on site on utility solar projects in Australia, which is kind of cool. One of the cool things for that company is that now they have technical staff in both the US and Australia. And so they do what's called a 16-hour cycle. So they have an extended work day because of the team in multiple disparate geographic areas. And that's accelerating their product development, actually. So that's really cool. But they weren't exhibiting, unfortunately. But I just think that the time is ripe for robotics. We see this really like takeoff happening now. There was probably half a dozen robotics companies exhibiting at least, and that's brand new. Like if you went to Intersolar, there was 2 or 3, and now there's half a dozen, and next year there'll be a dozen. They're coming.
So
The robots are coming.
Robotics, lots of modules, just lots of. Oh, and of course, I mean, it's still happening. I really saw it big happening in Munich, maybe last year. But batteries are just growing and growing and growing, and it's just not stopping. So batteries, Batteries are the new solar.
Yeah. I think it's a trend that we're used to expecting happen, which is just everything getting more power dense. Not only just the batteries that you mentioned, but modules. Everything's gaining efficiency. We unveiled our largest 1,000-volt string inverter to date. It's 100 kilowatts. So it's in addition to our 50 and 60 that were, uber successful. Deployed pretty much everywhere. And that came out in 2016 though. So this new 100 kilowatt is the first inverter larger than it since then. So
yeah.
For a company, CPS, when we were number one market share, it's a big deal. It's hopefully an inverter that will kind of throttle us into the future, and felt good to unveil it at a show like that. It's pretty exciting.
And there was a lot of energy around the Gonzo, your C&I battery. I think this is 262 kilowatt hour or something like that. The C&I battery space, I feel like is really heating up. No pun intended, but the moniker to remember around batteries, the value of batteries is earn, save, protect. So just learn those 3 words: earn, save, protect. If you're drinking from a fire hose on batteries, geek out on earn, save, protect. It's a thing. We learned this from Intelligent Generation. I'm about to have Jay Marhofer drop on the show. I've already done the interview. He's the founder of Intelligent Generation. He's a real thought leader in storage. He got into storage in the early 2000s before anybody was doing batteries here in the US. So what else?
Yeah, storage was huge. John mentioned that too, but man, storage is everywhere. It's the key. Every year we get more pushback from the utilities, and batteries and storage is kind of like the opposite effect of that to combat it. So it's good to see. It's giving the consumer more freedoms and options to becoming energy independent rather than just being subject to whatever these utilities want to do.
Yeah, I think hearing people talk about, well, lots of people are talking about the loss of incentives and dealing with it, but there's also people looking at the price of electricity going up, and that kind of jives with me because that's what I keep thinking about. So I'm when I hear somebody confirm my prior held beliefs, it makes me feel slightly less insane. And so I heard a few people mention that, and I was like, I feel bad about it for everybody else, but we need it. We need a little more expensive electricity. But I see in the news that, price of oil is, potentially going to slip into $50 per barrel next year. Price of gas might fall because China is importing less. It's interesting to watch and listen to people think about what's going to happen in the next few years as we evolve again in our industry, as we keep evolving. So that's just big floor. I sat down with Sia. I'm gonna have a story about with the boss. I sat down with a neat little round table of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6-ish journalists. I got to meet Billy from Solar Power World Online. He's really tall. He's like 6'4", 6'5".
I think 6'5". He's taller than me.
Tall guy. It's cool to see him because I read his stuff. I read everybody at Solar Power World every day. Got to see Julian Spector. 2 guys from S&P 500, it just people at Solar Builder, it was just cool little table, like 6 people who do nothing but write about solar. It's like, I read all of you people every other day. So it's just kind of neat to see them as well, which is different than seeing gear. It's, journalist people. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's cool you mentioned, just the walk of life you see. There's new companies like Abbott that are making waves in battery recycling. I saw some Tesla shirts there. Every corner of the industry. You might not know who you're talking to, but it's amazing the level of personnel that's there. Felt like there was.
I saw quite a few Tesla people there. I don't know if they were exhibiting. They're famous for not exhibiting, but they were definitely there.
They exhibited. They had a big booth.
Okay. Was that about storage primarily, or?
One half of it was Megapack shirts. The other half was residential. At least that's how I saw the people labeled when I went in there to ask questions, because I had questions on both sides.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of people with
Megapack and Powerwall.
No, it didn't have Powerwall. It said residential. That's the way the shirts were labeled. So it wasn't Tesla energy storage. It was just a Tesla booth They didn't have a car this year or anything. They just had Megapack on the right side. That's if you're facing the booth, Megapack was on the right, and Resi Solar was on the left side.
I noticed that Honda had a booth. It was kind of lame. I have nothing against Honda, but their booth was lame. And they didn't even have a pure EV in the booth. It was a hybrid ICE battery car. I'm like, this is so yesterday. I don't know. But anyway, should we get into the news?
Sure, we like the news.
Do it.
We do that sometimes.
All right. So we got a cool project of the week. Turlock Irrigation District celebrates state's first solar over canals pilot project.
Yeah, look at that thing. Look how big it is.
Let me get this on screen. Is this in California?
Yes. So California started a solar canal program.
Yeah.
And this
That's
is like
amazing.
the first unit. Yeah, there's a few pictures. You can zoom around it. So, check out the picture on the side. But look how just big and chunky it is. And I don't know. I just saw it and thought it looked cool. I mean, they think it could save, if they covered their many millions of miles of canals, not millions of miles, I don't know what I'm talking about, but they could save like 0.5% of their water. It sounds a lot, but it's really a small amount, but still 0.5% saving it from irrigation, probably useful.
Yeah.
It was just neat looking at the size of this thing. I mean, it was just like this big solid chunk of gear, and it just kind of looks cool. It's different than the ones I've seen in India, where they sit flat over their systems and they had infrastructure underneath. This one looks like you could put a boat down underneath it. So I guess they had different technical requirements or something. But just a big, cool
like
carport.
Clear span.
Yeah. So
Wouldn't you call that clear span?
I don't know what a clear span is, but sure.
I mean, where there's no legs sticking down into the canal.
Oh, sure.
All right.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, they must have some type of technical requirement that doesn't allow them to do like a floating. I think the floating would probably be better from like a build perspective, but then you can't transport anything. But if it's just for irrigation, it'd be interesting to see what their use case is for that.
I'm pretty certain a bunch of that water is going to LA just because they're in they're in the middle of a desert.
Yeah. Unique project. I've never seen anything like that, though. It's a good pick.
Yeah, it's the first one in the United States. So unless you've been to India, they have it. That's the only other place I know of canal solar. I'm sure China does it casually, but India has a big push on it. So.
Yep. All right. Mushrooms plus solar power.
Agrivoltaics. This is my continuing enjoying of agrivoltaic innovation stuff. So solar on top of food. And this one just showed a guy picking the mushrooms, but he has a cool YouTube/LinkedIn page where he goes through all the work. But this one I just thought looked neat because of the volume of mushrooms that he pulled off. Like, I don't know, not a lot of logs that he had there. So it seemed pretty cool, the volume of food he got out of there.
Yeah, it's neat. I feel like, what we just looked at for the canal project and agrivoltaics, I mean, they kind of have something in common, right? The water is used for, agriculture, right? And then on the other hand, you have, solar being integrated, into a landscape for agriculture. It's interesting how those worlds meet. I mean, would you consider like DC water pumps agrivoltaics, or is that kind of its own thing now?
I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's a farming use without a doubt.
Right.
But I would not call it agrivoltaic in my limited definition, because in my world, I look at grid electricity plus food. But that seems partial, This is, if it's pumping water up from the ground, that's super important too. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I would say this is agrivoltaics for sure.
Yeah.
You're growing a crop. Sorry, it took me a little while to get that on screen.
Sometimes, and so that's neat. So he's growing those just right underneath the solar panels because they thrive in a shaded environment.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
they like the shade.
I once saw a mushroom system in Japan that was much more complex looking, and it had them inside of a metal structure, and it looked costly. It looked like its own gear you'd have to deal with. But this one, he's just throwing down some logs, and he knew what logs to place, of course, and maybe he seeded them. But it's
Yeah, for
just
sure.
pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think agrivoltaics is something that, needs to be talked about. I think there's probably a lot of people don't even know what agrivoltaics is, but I mean, I think, growing up in more of a rural area, you're affiliated with, and aware of, the farmers, and there's a natural, push and pull with, using farmland for solar. Farmers kind of like it because, it's an additional income stream. But then, some other folks think, it's tying up land for too long. And a lot of people don't really realize that there is a world where, agriculture and solar can kind of work on the same field together, which is pretty interesting.
So it looks like we've got another agrivoltaics project here with a commercial solar guy project, huh?
Yeah, this is much earlier. I wasn't really talking about the agrivoltaic as much, but where we are in our interconnection process and how we're moving. And so we just got our interconnection agreement yesterday after applying like 3 years ago, Timothy and Evan. And this is even after we shrunk down our AC connection because we're going to do some batteries. We're going to have a 200 kW AC, but we got about 117 grand in utility costs. We're probably going to spend $250,000 easy on grid upgrades, which is kind of disheartening. But state
Tell
of
us about the ratio.
Massachusetts.
It's a very high DC to AC ratio. What is that about?
Yeah, so this is a in the SMART program of Massachusetts, where they pay you about 3 to 5 cents per kilowatt hour for their for using batteries. So any extra capacity that comes out of our system will get paid an extra 4 to 5 cents. And so we have, in order to maximize the revenue per kilowatt hour, we stayed under 250 kWAC because that's the way the program is structured. But
Okay.
really, we had to go under 200 because we knew what the local grid issues were. And we still had to wait for substation upgrades, but we snuck in without any extra costs. And so now we have a 3-to-1 DC to AC ratio coming, and we plan on having an estimated up to 180 or 1.8 megawatt hour battery. And that's because if we had 3-to-1, we clip 50%, 60% of our electricity. We'll hit the max output at like 7:45 a.m., 9 a.m. I don't know what
Right.
it is. It's nice and early.
So your
but
generation curve is very square, right?
yeah, it's gonna
Not
go
so
ping.
rounded.
Yeah, it's not going to be rounded, at least relative to the AC output. But if you look into the bigger output that includes the battery, our generation curve is still going to be the same. We're going to have single axis trackers, so that will help a little bit, but sort of square it off a tiny bit. But with the batteries, but really we're going to be outputting until midnight come the summertime. We're going to have 6 hours of output after this system finishes. So
And
it's
that's
going to be,
including like the direct current coming from the battery once the sun sets.
yeah, that's what's driving that. Yes, is that the batteries are going to be full during the day because there's no complexity with the output on this system. It's just general pure output whenever you have excess, and so so it's just scheduled for the kWh to go out. Now we may get into another program, connected solutions or something else with our battery, and so that may adjust how we output. But we're figuring that out. We'll figure that one out.
And tell us about the battery.
So we haven't chosen any battery yet.
Do you know like the basic specs? Is it 250 kWh or 500 kWh or?
So it's going to be about 300 kW, which is 1/2 of the DC sizing, and then about 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours. And this is driven by the incentive structure. So the SMART program first sets one incentive. So you look at your DC, and then your battery inverter relative to that is one variable. And then the second variable is your number of hours. And so the curve goes up strong until like 4 hours of battery. Then it slows down a little bit in terms of increasing rate. But we need 6 hours if we're going to really maximize this site and make up for all this interconnection costs that we have to pay for. So hopefully the extra revenue balances out when we start getting into this ROI stuff.
So it's on the order of 1,500 kWh, right?
An annual 1.8 right now. So 1.5 to 1.8. Yeah.
Okay.
1,500 to 1,800. Somewhere in that range
Yeah.
is the current projection. So,
Good
and
deal.
then we got to find the right inverters that can have the proper DC to AC ratio.
I know somebody can help you with that.
I know CPS does have some high DC. Sungrow has. I've seen it in the past. Selectria has. So we're getting closer. We are going to be aiming for domestic content, though. So we have to really try and tune our hardware, everything. It's going to be hard to make it domestic content, but we really gotta. We really want to.
And I totally appreciate that. And so it's the thing that you, okay, if you're a developer, asset owner, you have to think about CapEx versus OpEx. And yes, if you can hammer on the domestic content, you can drive down the CapEx, but careful because there's some gotchas potentially there on the back end on the OpEx. So just be careful. Right?
Yeah. Looks like an awesome project. Seems like maybe a future candidate for project of the month, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been on this document already once or twice. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, whenever whenever one of our projects have a cool milestone that they meet, I get a little excited. I gotta tell Tim. Yeah.
All right. And you've got a story in PV Magazine, John. Solar price pessimism quantified. What's the story from September 11th?
Yeah. So this was just covering a research paper. You know, I covered 4 or 5 articles over the last couple of weeks, but I was just covering a research paper. And let's go to the first graph. I think that's really going to be the best one to show it. So here's this graph. Zoom in on it a little bit if you can, and the portion around that 500 number, because this is really the crux of it. So if you see that solid black line that's in that graph, it starts just over 2000 and it goes down to, yeah, you got it right there, Tim.
Yeah.
And it goes down to that's the year 2023. And you
Yep.
can see the price per watt fall, the price per kilowatt fall. And that's the real number that they see happening. Now, all these other lines, and you can see them all on the right side, those are all different price future projections starting, 2015, 2000 what, and they say, okay, this is what we see is going to happen in the future. And you look at all these curves going out to the far right. If you look at that, that's 2050. And look at where those prices are. Some of those prices are $1 per watt and all the way down to I don't know, that little green one at the bottom. Maybe it's 25 cents.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at half of them, roughly half of them are higher. They're 2050 projections than today's price. Today's 2025, gentlemen. Don't know if you remember that.
What is today's real price?
About, for this document, global, 50 cents per watt. 50 cents per watt installed is kind of the number that they look at.
Yeah. What are these colors represent? The different
Is that
colors
$500 per kilowatt?
I think it's KWAC, but yes.
Okay.
And the different colors are just different models, like from NREL, from scientists, people predicting the future. These are projections, cost projections going forward. And the interesting thing is, if you look at that $500, go all the way to the right. Again, this is a 2023 price. So the pricing of 23 was 27 years ahead of the pace that a bunch of these people projected. And that's why this is solar price projections quantified, or solar price pessimism quantified.
Yeah.
It's like people just are still, you're the smartest people on earth. And some of them are NREL, our best friends, the best solar people in the whole United States. Everybody that works at NREL, I will buy you a beer. All you got to do is show me your little tag, or you can even lie to me. Just if you know the word NREL, I'll buy you a beer. I once saw somebody with a laptop sticker with NREL and then an NREL t-shirt. I just felt so happy seeing that. But, even NREL is behind because of the change that has occurred with our industry. And so the purpose of this paper was just to be like, holy crap, look at that. These numbers are just, we knew it, but now here's seeing it. All these people need to adjust their numbers and figure out why they were wrong. And the same thing in batteries. Look, go to the next chart. The very last one. You can see it happening with batteries right there. No, up. Right there. You can see that these projections, but you see that little tiny red dot underneath everything?
Actual 2025, $58.
It's what are the Evan and Tim, you and I need to go into the projection business because we can just throw stuff at the wall and then be like, here's our thing. Give us a paper with our name on it so I can show it to a pretty lady and be like, hey, I'm published. Because this is like, oh my gosh. So batteries are below projected cost of 2050.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Our pace, our movement, our acceleration is just raw.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting too. I mean, we're operating in an industry that's, parallel with the car industry, which, has a huge demand for energy storage right now. And you wonder, I mean, back around like 2020, when the EV, I would call it EV boom, was really happening. It's interesting to see how things can really accelerate potentially. I have a feeling that some of that technology and just the overall supply chain has to accelerate some metrics like that red dot there. It's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. I like whenever I see our new techs coming on, like hydrogen, batteries, perovskites particularly, whenever there's a parallel industry to ours, I'm like, I feel more optimistic because there's more scientists, more research, more serendipitous views of what's happening. And if you think about batteries, what made our battery industry happen? Our laptops and our phones. These are the things that set the market so that once Tesla and BYD said, oh, look at this existing tech, they had a massive base of battery manufacturing. They had scientists, research, people trying their best. And so our batteries for our grid are being developed at a 9-to-1 ratio. So car batteries are like 80 to 90% of the batteries that are manufactured globally. Grid is 10. So we are massively benefiting from the parallel industry that we get to piggyback on. And that's great. So anyway, price quantified. That was one of my happy stories of the week.
Well, this is not a happy story. And Evan, if you need to leave, you're fine to leave. But if you want to hang out, we're all good. It's totally up to you.
Certainly.
We got 3 more links to cover, 10 minutes max.
Yeah, we'll go for another 10 or so here. We got a story about Meyer Burger, which is near and dear to me and John's heart. Meyer Burger unlikely to survive under provisional debt moratorium. I have some ideas about this company, but John, what is the basic story here?
They made a push to grow, and they're probably going out of business. They're in BK. They shut down their solar cell factory in Germany. They really only have 2 collections of people working right now. They have 2 businesses, and
Let's give our listeners some background.
Right.
This is a company that made solar panel manufacturing equipment originally, right?
Yes.
And then they got into solar panel manufacturing, brought that to the U.S., but there were some false starts, never fully opened. I mean, this is a picture of a plant in Arizona, it looks like, right?
Yeah. So first, they were a watch glass maker,
right,
to the earliest that I know about.
Old
so
Swiss company.
Yes. And then at some point, one technology that they got into was they made diamond wire saws, I guess, that cut the watch faces, the glass. And that ended up being integrated into solar cell, and solar wafer cutting. And then at some point, they kept moving up the supply chain, making cells, making wafers. And then over the last few years, they tried to make a push into the US assembling modules. Now, they were making modules in Germany, and they were a few hundred megawatts that they started pushing into.
Yeah, and it was a premium panel. It was a very nice product, right?
Yeah.
But it's a question of how competitive can you be, right? Making panels in Northern Europe.
And only making a few hundred megawatts. And, so they just, they made the push into the US, and it just didn't come through. And they had 2 facilities they were doing. They had the Arizona Goodyear facility, and I guess that's what this one is. And then they had a facility for cells that they were working on in Colorado. Yeah, I think Colorado City. And so both of those facilities have gone, and it looks like their U.S. facilities might go to Wari, which is cool. That's an Indian manufacturer. They're pretty big. If they're going to make use of those factories, awesome. It's at least it's going to get taken care of, so, or get made use of. But it just breaks my heart, just because I just like their glass technology. I like their clean polysilicon sourcing. It was good to have global competition. You know, the Chinese are really awesome making solar panels, but I'm really happy seeing India and China now competing, because, and the US and
Yeah.
Europe as they can go, because it's just good to have different sets of eyes. It's just like the battery stuff. You want learning curves, you want different people, different visions, and literally vision sometimes, just saying, oh, I see this differently. So anyway.
So I have another theory, and that is that they were outcompeted by China because guys like Dean Solon at Create, who's building a solar module factory in Tennessee, will say publicly the best equipment for making solar panels comes from China.
Yeah.
He's waiting for equipment from China. Meyer Burger stopped selling their equipment because the Chinese were copying their equipment and stealing their IP. But China's no longer just copying others' technologies. They're truly a powerhouse of R&D and invention themselves, right? Things have changed. So anyway, I don't have any validation of this theory. That's just my theory that the world has changed and they didn't change fast enough with it. But we'll be sad. It'll be sad to see them go if they go. Hopefully, they'll find an investor.
Well, I don't know. I don't think they are.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stick to it anymore.
Yeah, certainly come a long way. It'd be great to see a dive and catch, if you will.
Dive and catch. All right, there's a story about Vermont. This is our last story, I think, isn't it?
Sure. Oh, we got another one after it, but this fast.
Vermont lawmakers plan to consider balcony solar next session.
That's it. Nothing magical. They're just considering allowing you to plug in some solar. They got a little bit of volume. The KW number, I saw it earlier.
I mean, we've covered a couple of states are rolling out balcony solar laws, right?
Well, so far, the only place where I've seen a law explicitly was Utah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so these people are looking similar. It's also 1.2 kW and has very similar details as the Utah language. So I just thought it was neat to see a second state going with balcony solar. And I also think it's smart for a northern state to do it, because most balcony solar is at a more aggressive angle. And Vermont is, we're way north. They're Canadians. And so, having balcony solar up there is smart. A lot of trees up there, though.
Absolutely.
Is this something you guys see like actually being like implemented a lot? Is this something that a lot of folks want to do?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say implemented a lot in the US yet. We're just at the early edges of it. Yeah. So you guys need to get yourself a 1.2 kW inverter with rapid shutdown that's UL certified to isolate the solar system in case the grid goes down. And somehow it's got to have smarts reading on the circuit so that it can tell what's happening on the circuit and not overpower this circuit, because you can have solar coming in at 20. This is the hypothesis of the challenge.
Sure.
You have the grid coming in at 20. You have the solar coming in at 20. Now, generally, that wouldn't the way electricity works, if you were plugged in correctly and you only
You're talking about 20 amps?
Yeah, 20 amps.
Okay.
And if you only had if you only had one 20 amp item plugged into the wall properly, then the solar would make it so that the wall wouldn't draw. And so everything's cool because you have a 20 amp circuit, 20 amp wires. But the hypothesis is you have consumers who are going to plug in two 20 amp things to the same circuit. And now you have the solar coming in at 20, offsetting it, and the grid pulling another 20. So hypothetically, there's 40 amps happening within the circuits. But I don't know how that really works, but they're really talking about that, how to manage it. So that seems like the magic little nuance of keeping these cheap. If we can figure out how to get that circuit protected without having to upgrade the electric panel and bring in an electrician where you can just plug it in, that seems like the cool way to do it. So yes, Evan. It's not implemented a lot though. It's not worth the money today.
Well, I
but
said
maybe
yes.
in a few years.
I said yes to that because it is a thing more in Europe. In Northern
Yeah.
Europe, balcony solar is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is something that can be implemented by renters, right? Or people that don't want to put it on their roof or have a shady roof. Like my house, I have a big tree in my backyard, but I could put balcony solar on my back deck coming off the rail if I could do something simple like plug it into the outlet. And so anyway.
Yeah, it's a cool topic. It's little solutions like that I feel like breed other similar solutions. I feel like with something like that, it's not huge, but that also means it's probably a little bit more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be the true breakthrough of this industry when people are able to buy these things. I mean, solar is still expensive, relatively speaking. So is electricity. That's kind of been the classic argument, but hopefully we'll see something like balcony solar transition into something like porch solar and personal carport solar.
One group calls it backyard solar.
Yeah,
I covered I can't remember the name now, but I covered a carport that's made to be portable. Like it comes with wheels, so you could roll it into your garage if there was a storm.
Yeah, I saw, kind of maybe tying back the whole conversation too. I remember, I think it was RE Plus Chicago, Tim. I was walking the floor and I came across a small little company. I don't know their name. We could plug them here, but they make a small little inverter enough for 1 or 2 solar panels. And it actually ties directly into a water heater. And it's just kind of a sort of piggybacks off that simple way to figure out a way to integrate solar, but there wasn't any interconnection needed because it wasn't going to backfeed it all. And so I don't know, it's an interesting type of field that I think we'll see happen, maybe develop a little bit more over the next few years.
I found the episode. It's episode 100. Gizmo Power is the name of the company. Check out my interview with Antonia Ginsberg-Klempt. Very interesting young woman. I think she's in grad school now out west, but very cool product. Gizmo Power.
Awesome.
All right, Tim.
I think we should wrap it up. I know you had one more story on the docket, but
always news stories, Tim. Always something to talk about.
Yeah. We'll see if it stands the test of time. We're coming back on the 26th. So I want to thank Evan Upshur from CPS America for joining us today. And as always, the Commercial Solar Guy. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review, but more importantly, tell a friend about the show. There are many people that don't know about the Clean Power Hour, so tell a friend and connect with me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from my listeners. John, how can our listeners find you?
Best place is just commercialsolarguy.com, my website, and that's really it. Commercialsolarguy.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Blue Sky, but if you really want to see some of the stuff we build and what's going on, commercialsolarguy.com. We have a contact page and all kinds of stuff.
And how about you, Evan Upshur?
Yeah, usually making it around to the local trade shows and conferences, representing Chint Power Systems. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, so happy to connect with any listeners there.
Fantastic. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.